Hello, my fellow gun lovers of the world. This is Gene with G Squared Tactical. We're talking about another Glock again today. And as you know from the previous few videos that I've done, Glock is a Glock is a Glock. Everybody says, what are you going to talk about? It's a Glock. It is safe. Nothing in the magazine, nothing in the chamber. Every time that I don't talk about lengths and weights and all of that stuff, it never fails. Someone always educates me. A lot of times when I look at guns, I don't care about any of those things. I've already kind of decided that for me, it's going to serve the purpose as far as lengths and weights and all of those is what I want to do with it. I'm more interested in what the person I'm listening to thinks about it and how he thinks it's going to perform and function. But for the sake of argument, we'll go through all of those things. It did come with two 10-round magazines. I did put an extension on here. +2 extension. It does say 43X on the side of the extension here. That'll give me 12 rounds. Like I said, it did come with two 10-round mags, and it does have the orange follower on here. I think Trey actually picked up some from a place called, or a company called Shield Arms, and it's a double stack, believe it or not, and I believe it holds 15 rounds, but I have to check with him. We'll see if it performs on the range when we get out there here in the next couple of weeks. It comes in unloaded at about 18.3, loaded about 24 ounces. Very, very light, very slim. It does have the trigger that you're accustomed to, the safe action trigger that you're accustomed to on a Glock. 5 pounds, same reset. If you love a Glock trigger, then you'll love this trigger because it is a Glock trigger. And it is good, but not great. You know how I feel about that. There are plenty of other stock triggers that I believe are better than a Glock trigger, but you have your Glock fanboys out there, and so you have yourself a Glock trigger. Overall length of 7.2, and the overall height with the mag in place, and of course this reflex not mounted up here. You're coming in at about 5, just a shade over 5 inches high. Overall width of 1.1, very, very slim. We'll talk about that here in a minute. The trigger distance is about 2.64 in the line of sight with the factory plastic sights, which again, we'll talk about that here in a minute too. 5.91, it does have the reversible mag catch. And other than that, there's nothing on the gun that is ambi, as you would of course expect from the Glock. It does have the built-in beaver tail here because of course it does not come with any back straps to be added onto this, which is good because on the Gen 4 and Gen 5, the back straps that are included, I always end up getting the one with the deepest beaver tail and putting on my firearm. So I like that. I like the extended beaver tail. And you do get the marksman barrel that you have become accustomed to seeing in the Gen 5 Glocks, which they claim is, you know, more accurate, more durable, lasts longer, things of that nature. So let's move on to some things. Again, it is a Glock. You know I'm not a Glock fanboy. We do have the Romeo Zero mounted up here. We'll talk about that a little more when we get to the range. And I really like the fact, now I will say this out the gate, I've had some issues with these Romeo Zeros. If you guys have watched our channel for any length of time, you know that on the Canic subcompact, we had a plethora, if you will, of issues with this Romeo Zero on the subcompact. In fact, I ended up sending that back and asking for a refund. I was so aggravated, I didn't even want another one. And I have not bought one since then. But in the era of all of these subcompacts that have came out with these micro reflexes, almost all of them, the Romeo Zero will flush mount to the slide without a plate. And so what that allows a lot of times is, since it is cut through in the rear of this Romeo Zero, the factory sights a lot of times will co-witness right through it. So the subcompact did, the Canic Rival that I put one on, it has, and also this with the factory Glock sights. Now, I was able to align this dot and set it in front of my front sight between my rear, which typically for me, that almost always when I get to the range, I find that to be zeroed at 12, 15, 20 yards. So that's what I start out at, and if I have to change it, that's what I'll do. So far, I haven't had the issue that I had with the other one on the subcompact as far as not being able to adjust the dot for some reason. It's like it just, you quit being able to adjust it. And, you know, oddly enough, Trey purchased one of these for his 43X, and he had that problem. So now there's two that we've had of the Romeo Zero that's had that very same problem. So for me, I guess the jury's still out. As I said, I have mounted it to 3 guns recently, but have not got a chance to shoot any of them to see if it not only would hold zero through some recoil, but also that the glass wouldn't scratch up and some of the other problems we had with a couple of these zeros we have. I really want them to work because I do not like the fact, as I've mentioned before to you guys, that you have a pistol that's able to receive a reflex, but you send no plates for it. You have to buy them aftermarket. It's not necessarily like these Glock pistols are cheap. I wouldn't necessarily consider them budget friendly. So I feel like they could do that. I mean, they've already skimped on putting 2 back straps instead of 4 in the in some of the new Gen 5 models. So I just feel like that's a little crappy on the gun manufacturer's part not to include some plates up here. So when that doesn't happen, this Romeo Zero is a go-to for me. I did put some Ameriglow raised sights on here, but honestly, when I put them on here, they kind of came up too far into the glass, and it was kind of a distraction for me. And these factory Glock plastic sights, which you know I don't like, I always said in the last video, one of the first things I do is I change those out, in this rear slide plate, which I have done, put me a do not tread me metal or aluminum rear slide plate on here. So, but I do like the fact that the Romeo Zero did mount flush on here, and for the time being anyway, it looks like it has zeroed out with my factory sight. So I'm going to keep those, which again is unlike me when it comes to a Glock. And as I've mentioned, I also usually replace the takedown lever and the slide lock here and make them extended. Well, with this slim line pistol, this almost feels extended, honestly. Maybe a little bit more than some of the extended ones I've bought. I'm sure it's just because the frame is so thin. I'm sure it's not extended. And it seems that I'm easily enough able to drop the slide with the slide lock on this one, so I'm not going to change it to an extended one. You know, my 10mm, some of my large frame Glocks, it's a little harder to drop the slide, so I always put the extension. But I'm not going to do that on this one. I'm going to leave everything factory, except, of course, like I said, I did put the aluminum rear slide plate on here, and I did put me a mag extension on one of the magazines. I just like the way that it makes it look, and also, you know, I just feel like I got a better purchase on the gun. I'm not going to be deep concealing this or anything. I could definitely envision a scenario where I carried this around in the slingshot with us, maybe even throughout the day for a truck gun or something. It does have a single slot rail up here on the front. Unfortunately, I've only been able to find one flashlight that would work. I say unfortunately, I'm a Streamlight fan, as you guys know. I do also like the Surefires, but these seem to have more options available for different platforms of guns. And this TLR7 sub, now, you can't just go out and buy a TLR7 sub and think that it's going to work on here, because it won't. It specifically has to say GL stamped on each side of it for the Glock, and I'm certain that it only fits the Glock 43X and the Glock 48. They do make the TLR sub also, I believe, for the 365, and I think maybe one other one. I'm not exactly sure, but I think there's one other one that they make this for, but this one is specifically for the Glock. I like the way that the paddles come back into the trigger guard here, very easily manipulated. I'm a fan of this particular setup and the way that this comes up into the trigger guard here. So you do have the option to mount your light on there. And I mean, if you would have handed me this, if you would have blindfolded me and handed me this and told me that you were giving me a new, smaller 1911, 3-inch maybe, for a minute until I realized that it was polymer, I probably would have believed you. It feels very 1911-like in the hand. Now, I'm sure a big burly guy with some big old hands, maybe not so much, but I have these short, fat sausage fingers, as you know, and it just fits great. I mean, I just absolutely love, I mean, I didn't think I would find myself saying that about a Glock, especially this Glock, considering how much I trashed the 43X and even the 48, because of how out of place I thought it was for, you know, some of the other available options, the 365 and some of the other options available in this particular setup or market. Or this is not really a micro compact, but you know what, with this longer grip profile here, you know, with, if you have the standard magazine in here, you know, with this longer grip profile and it being thinner versus say the 365, where your all three fingers are able to get a good purchase on the front of that thing, whereas with a 365 your pinky may hang off. I could envision a scenario where capacity be danged, right? I mean, you know, even though the 365 you get, you know, double the capacity as the 43 and even more capacity as the 43X, you know, I guess if it holds better in your hand, if you shoot better with it, I mean, capacity be danged, right? I mean, what really matters is if you're able to use the gun and how it feels and shoots for you and whether you can get on target. So, you know, I guess I kind of sort of a little bit take back. Trey has the 43X, and although the slide and barrel and such is a little shorter than this one, of course, it does have the option to mount the reflex on his. I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna give them a shot, revisit it, I guess. You know, after purchasing one, we're gonna take them to the range. We're gonna shoot them and see how they do. Get back to you guys on that. But I'm slowly becoming a fan of this gun. So, and I'm sure it's gonna be just as reliable as any other Glock that we've had. It does have the front serrations as you're accustomed to seeing on the Gen 5 models. And of course it does have the rear serrations here. But it still is a Glock. So we'll see how it does. Anyway, the lock, the speed loader, the cleaning brush, traditional Glock box here, 210 round mags, and I'll try to put up where I got this +2, but they're readily available. And anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video today. I'm sure there's something that I left out. Every time we put up something with Glock, someone has something hateful to say, because you do still have your Glock fanboys out there. But I hope you enjoyed the video. We can't do this without you guys. Make sure you subscribe. That's the most important thing. Hit that thumbs up. Set your alerts so you'll know when we have other videos coming up. And again, thanks you so much for watching. God bless you guys.